Hey folks, it's Matt once again. Welcome back to another review for the John Candy Marathon, and this time it is the 1988 film The Great Outdoors, where John Candy and his family go out into the woods to have a vacation, but then his brother-in-law and his family, which is Dan Aykroyd and Annette Bening, and they have two daughters, they come and sort of spoil their fun and sort of all the crazy shit that happens in the great outdoors. Directed by Howard Deutch, who would go on to direct. I think he had done Pretty in Pink. He would go and do Grumpier Old Men. I think he did The Odd Couple too. The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. There's quite a few of the guy's movies I enjoy. And this is definitely one of the John Candy films I enjoy ever since. Loved it ever since I saw it as a kid. And I don't think I'm the only one. I mean, John Candy does a great job. Dan Aykroyd, he's alright in the film. I mean, you're not really supposed to like his character. But I don't think Dan Aykroyd did a bad job. Has some nice catchy songs in it. I mean, it starts with Yat-dee-dee yat, don't call back, Yat-dee-dee yat, Yat-dee-dee yat. I remember that ever since I saw it when I was a kid. That song was stuck in my head. And John Candy's family going to this cabin. There's like this shotgun lamp, which gets used later on. And Annette Bening, I think this was the first film she was in, at least a film that went into theaters. I think she had done maybe some TV stuff, but for a film to go into theaters, this was, yeah, it was Annette Bening's first theatrical film role. And she did fine as Dan Aykroyd's wife. The woman who played John Candy's wife, she did a good job. The kids were fine. They were not annoying. John Candy, they had a little boy and a teenage kid. Dan Aykroyd, he plays a great jerk. He could, and I think that works well because you could definitely be in John Candy's shoes and his reaction to Dan Aykroyd. Like John Candy just wants to, fry some hot dogs. And Dan Aykroyd's like, oh, hot dogs, come on. You know what's in them? Lips and assholes. And I love John Candy's response. I guess I'm old-fashioned. I like assholes. And then when he turns around, like John Candy's ready to smack Dan Aykroyd right in the face. And it's like, I'm with you, John. I'm with you. So, I mean, it definitely makes me relate to John Candy's character. He does a great job. I wish I had the actual DVD cover instead of this 3-pack, because I love, I'm going to try to use it for the thumbnail. I love the cover, which looks like some of those fishing magazines, where it's John Candy on this hook on his coat and Dan Aykroyd's next to him. I love that artwork, but again, I only have it part of this 3-pack. I don't even know which John Candy films are out on Blu-ray, to be honest. If they are, maybe one day I'll pick them up so it's not so I can have the. Because the way, real quick, like this is a 3-pack where Uncle Buck is on. Going Berserk's on one, and then Uncle Buck and the Great Outdoors are on another. And one day I want to get this so I have these Uncle Buck and Great Outdoors separately. Be better, a little bit better picture quality and such. But anyway, it's one of those things. It's just them being out in the outdoors, and John Candy tells the group this story that he heard when he was a kid about this bear, and he talks about how it had claws like Freddy Krueger, and the hair, shot the gun, and the hair came off, and then he throws the drink in the fireplace to scare everybody. And John Candy, throughout the film, he is a good dad. Like he's not a buffoon. To the point of he's not like treating his wife like shit. He's not. You know how some films, oh, he's not going to pay attention to his kids and he's all in his own world. No, John Candy's a good guy, just a normal guy. Him and his wife get along. He treats his kids perfectly fine, and that's cool. Because, the fact of, oh, he's got to get he wants to hang out with his kids, but they're doing fine. A lot of times you have that cliche of, and, it can work. Just depends on the script and such, but, the kids hate the dad, and the dad's trying to connect, and I like that it wasn't the case in this. It was just a normal outing that just got ruined by Dan Aykroyd and his family. And you could tell that Dan Aykroyd's character is trying to learn from John Candy's characters. Like, John Candy calms his kid perfectly fine after that story. But then Dan Aykroyd tries to calm his two girls like Candy, but he worsens it because he talks about how all this army experiment and psychos in the woods. And then you have one of the weird things in the film, but I will say it is something I remember. I'm not sure it's something that's great, but it's something I remember, and that's the raccoons. If you think of the great outdoors, you remember those raccoons, and they have subtitles. And they pop up like 3 or 4 times, and you have that music, ba 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 boo. And they have these subtitles. For example, one of them repeats what Dan Aykroyd said about hot dogs. Oh, their lips and assholes. And I'm not sure how I feel about the raccoons. On one hand, it's like, do they really need to be in the film? But on the same time, like I say, it is something I remember, and it's not the most awful thing. It's just one of the, maybe it gives that sort of 80s sort of vibe to it. I don't know. It didn't bother me as much, but at the same time, if it was in the film, it wouldn't bother me. It's one of those things that I could take it or leave it. And I know I said this the third time, but it is something people remember, so. And I didn't even mention this was written by John Hughes. Hughes, if I say his name right. John Hughes, and who had worked with Howard Deutch on Pretty in Pink, and I think another film was it She's Having a Baby? I can't remember. I could just pop up the director's filmography. But yeah, I guess John Hughes didn't want to direct it. He was busy with stuff, so gave it to Howard Deutch. And Howard Deutch, I think, did fine. He did fine. I liked a lot of his movies. And just a lot of different stuff happens. The Waterstein incident. Uh, and the kid is like, hey, Dad, let go of the rope. And John Candy's holding for dear life because inadvertently he got to be Waterstein with Dan Aykroyd driving the boat. He's like, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dying, I'm dying. John Candy has some really funny reactions to that. Then he loses one ski. And he has some nice scenes with his wife playing with his life, some nice funny pratfalls throughout the flick. They go to this birthday at this bar, and they find out, oh, they don't take picture with this old guy. He's the oldest guy around. And then they find out later, oh, he's dead. And like, oh my God, go to the bathroom, wash up, wash up. And the guy has to tell, well, he died on the way here. And I'm like, what do you expect? He's 109 years old. Candy takes his younger son to watch these bears. And Candy, he does something stupid where he puts all this shit on the windshield. But then, like, one bear gets on the roof, and then one bear gets on the windshield, is clawing at it. And John Candy's like, hey, maybe I'll drive slowly and they'll get off. And they don't, so they back up and they start driving, and both bears are still on the vehicle. And I know this sounds dumb, but just the fact they use real bears. And I know the main bear is Bart the Bear, who he's the bear you had seen in quite a few 80s films. For example, he was in The Edge with, someone had asked me about The Edge, if I liked it. I liked The Edge with Anthony Hopkins. That was Bart the Bear. And I'll just look up real quick what else he's been, as well as that Howard Deutch thing. But yeah, like the director Howard Deutch, he had done Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, After this, he did a film called Article 99, which I'm actually curious about. If I would like to get that one day and give it a watch. Dating Even with Dad, well, I actually don't remember it. I know it's Macaulay Culkin and I think Ted Danson. I don't think I've seen that one. Grumpy Old Men I like. Odd Couple 2 I like. The Replacements I like. Whole 10 Yards was crappy. My Best Friend's Girl, I didn't like that one either. But he had a good track record for a while. And again, Article 99 I'm curious about. But anyway, Bart the Bear, he passed away quite a while ago, but he was in White Fang. He was the bear in that one. He was the bear in Homeward Bound. On Deadly Ground, that was the thing I was thinking of. Because I did the Steven Seagal marathon. Yeah, he was in that one. He was a bear in 12 Monkeys, The Edge, and the last film he did was Meet the Deedles with Paul Walker. But that bear doesn't show up till the end of the film. But it's nice that they use real bears instead of just some. If I could, it would be like Grown Ups 2 when they used the CGI deer at the beginning of Grown Ups 2. I'm like, why don't you just use a real deer and not have him piss in Adam Sandler's face, which is what happens in Grown Ups 2. See, that's the thing. Like, that's a comedy nowadays. They just have a shitty CGI animal doing stupid stuff like that. I don't need a deer pissing in the face. You have a real bear that just gets on the roof and it's the situation. Like, oh my god, what am I going to do? Let me try to drive slowly. You didn't need bear shit. You didn't need bear piss. You didn't need a CGI fucking bear or CGI animal. Or like those fucking CGI deers in The Ring 2. Where the fuck they were. It sounds simple, but it's effective. That's why, a scene like that works today. Real bears, and again, you don't need bear shit and bear piss. Or anything of that nature. He's racing go-karts with his kids. John Candy, then him and Dan Aykroyd have to mess with his bat, and they de-rip on all this stuff, and Dan Aykroyd hits John Candy in the face, and they able to get the bat. There's one scene where John Candy, they're out eating, and there's this old 96er, which is this 96-ounce steak. I thought that was a fun scene, just John Candy trying to eat this whole steak, and Dan Aykroyd egging him on, and he's like, oh, come on, just a little bit more. And I thought the music in that scene fit the film like a glove, and he thinks he's finished, but then he's got to eat all the gristle, and sort of the scared look on John Candy's face, like, oh. John Candy made that work well. One thing I don't like in the film, and it's involved in this scene, is the older kid of John Candy. It's a subplot that could have perfectly been taken out of the film, and it's the older teenage boy of John Candy has a crush on a local girl, and from time to time the film literally stops in his tracks, and then like in this scene it keeps going to the kid looking at his watch as he's got to meet the girl. It leads nowhere. It does nothing. It's not interesting. It's not funny. It's not needed. It's not wanted. Not one single person. Well, truthfully, not many people talk about the great outdoors. So I don't know if I say it's underrated. Maybe. I mean, no one. Does anyone talk about the great outdoors? Someone leave a comment. Answer me that. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I want to hear fans of the great outdoors, because you don't hear a lot of people talk about that film. At least around here. I'm seeing what it did. It did alright at the box office. It cost 20-some million and it made a little over 40 million. So it was not a bomb. It made a little bit chunk of change. Credits didn't like it, but fuck it. But yeah, I mean, not many people talk about it. But I was saying the teenage kid and his love affair with this teenage girl. It's like they thought they had to put that in there for any of younger folks. Well, we gotta have the teenage kid do something. Because John Hughes used to write, with Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink. He wrote that. Howard Deutch directed it, but no, you didn't need that. That could have been completely cut out. No, and I was saying, there's not one single person who goes, I love the great outdoors because that one kid is with that local chick. I'm sure there are people who's like, I've seen that film. Did that happen in the movie? I'm like, yes, it did. You forgot it because it's that forgettable. It is a 6.6, so I can't be the only one who likes the film. I mean, I would put it higher, but for IMDb, that's fairly decent. But yeah, the older son, the local girl stuff, completely, utterly fucking useless. Boring. It could have been cut out, and it would have been a shorter film. And it's still a shorter film. It's only 91 minutes. So it goes by perfectly fine. Until that happens. Again, that's honestly my only flaw in the film, for me, is that shit. Because the raccoon stuff, I could take or leave it. It was kind of cute in an 80s way, but I could take or leave it. But you have the scene where John Candy and Dan Aykroyd take some of the kids out on the boat, and they fall asleep, and they wake up, there's all these leeches on them. And then it leads to John Candy and Dan Aykroyd having this argument with each other. And even John Candy's wife is tells Dan to blow it out of your ass. And all of a sudden, all the family keeps saying that. And then the wife just has to stop it. No, nobody's blowing anything out of any ass. And then Dan Aykroyd goes, I was picking my moment. And John Candy goes, you were picking your nose. uh, so I thought Dan Aykroyd and John Candy worked well together. This is a really funny back and forth. Dan going, I was picking my moment. And then John Candy goes, you were picking your nose. That's what you were picking. And then he tries to guilt trip John Candy and saying, well, I got this check, for this investment. You give me a check for this investment. I'll make you a lot of money. And John makes John Candy feel bad. He does it. But then Dan Aykroyd has a change of heart, goes back, and fesses up that they're really bankrupt. Dan Aykroyd, Annette Bening doesn't know it, but yeah, Dan Aykroyd's character is bankrupted. He had taken them there in order to get some money from, but he changed his mind, change of heart. And you get a little bit in the finale, some drama, where Dan Aykroyd's little girls have wandered into this mine is during a storm, and Dan Aykroyd and John Candy go out to look for them, and Dan Aykroyd finds these two little girls, and John Candy sort of says, hey, you're their father, man up, go get your daughters. I'll go get some stuff to help you get out of that mine, because he's got to crawl in and get them back up. But by the time John Candy gets back, Dan Aykroyd has gotten the two girls. John Candy doesn't know that, so he throws some stuff down, and it's Bart the Bear. The bald-headed bear that John Candy told the story earlier. And he pulls it up and, unknowingly pulls the bear up. And he runs for his life. And you have that funny moment where he gets in the cab. He's like, bear, bear. The bear gets on him and, jumps on the door that's, right on top of John Candy. And John Candy's going, get off me, you son of a bitch. Uncle, uncle, uncle. And then this one guy, this local, comes by. I think, I want to make sure if that's the actor I'm thinking of. But the one guy who owns the place comes by, and he's got that shotgun lamp. And Dan Aykroyd's helping out, try to save some of the family by getting the bear's attention. And the guy who comes, Robert Prosky. Yeah, he's a guy who was in Christine. He was in Mrs. Doubtfire. He was Christine. He was the boss of the shop that the lead character in Christine worked at. Yeah, he was also Mrs. Doubtfire. He was in ICU, Stallone film. Oh yeah, he was Grandpa Fred in Gremlins 2. I forgot about that. He was the guy who had the Dracula outfit, looking like the guy from the Munsters. I forgot that was Robert Prosky in Gremlins 2. That's right. And that was after this film. Oh, hey, he was in The Keep. I forgot he was in The Keep. But I believe he's passed away. But John Candy takes the gun away from him and shoots and I believe it's buckshot. So he shoots it in the ass, and now there's no hair on its ass, and it runs away. The reason it works is because for me is the cries of the bear, the way they did that, where it's running away, and you even hear in the distance like oh, oh, like it's like yeah, that's gotta hurt. That's gonna leave a mark. And just a lot of fun adventures during the great outdoors. It's not just one plot going along where it's one consistent plot of, oh, we gotta do this to save the park, or we gotta do this to save the cabin. It's just a series of events, then an event to cap it off, and I liked it that way. That was what made the great outdoors fun. It's like, what's going to happen next? This thing happens. You can do anything you want. You're not having to be strict on this running plot line. It's just a bunch of events that happens. And I think they're pretty entertaining events. And even at the end when he realizes that his wife is going to let Dan Aykroyd them stay at the place at John Candy's home because Dan Aykroyd says, race you home. And John Candy's like, yeah. What's he mean by that? Honey, what does he mean, race you home? And she goes, well, they're bankrupt and we're going to help them out and the house is big enough. And John Candy's like, no, 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 no. And Dan Aykroyd's already driven off. He has this sweet moment with his son. He's like, yeah. Now get in the hell in the car. We got to beat your uncle home. they drive off. And then you get another fun song. Na, 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 na. 1, 2, 3, do. And then the end credits have like Dan Aykroyd and others dancing around the bar. I had not seen The Great Outdoors in a long time, and I forgot just how much fun this movie is. Dan Aykroyd, especially John Candy. John Candy, he's definitely the quarterback in the film, John Candy. He's my favorite part of the film. He does a great job. There's just a lot of fun events that happens throughout. Stuff that just made me chuckle and laugh. Just had a good time. It was very short. Wasn't long at all. Yeah, only 91 minutes long. That's with the end credits. Some nice songs. I like the song at the beginning of the film, Yak-de-dee-yak, Yak-de-dee-yak, and the song at the end. Na, 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 na. I mean, like I was saying, all these events, the bear stomping on John Candy's like, Uncle, get off me, you son of a bitch, and the leeches stuff, and him having to eat that big ass steak, and the ski sequence, and him telling the story about the bear, and just a lot of fun moments. My only problem, the raccoons are there. The stuff with the son and the local girl, that could have been completely cut out. Could have saved 5-6 minutes of the film. So, but yeah, The Great Outdoors, I think it's a fun movie. It's an entertaining film. Love to hear more about the making of the flick, but you're never going to get that. And it's definitely up there as one of my favorite John Candy films. It was a lot of fun to watch this again. And if you haven't seen The Great Outdoors in a while, give it another watch. It's pretty damn fun, at least in my opinion. So thanks for watching. Take care. And remember, hot dogs, they're lips and assholes. And what can I say? I guess I'm old-fashioned. I guess I love assholes. Later.